Captain Lee Do-yun floated in the command center of Aegis Station, watching Earth turn slowly below him. The blue planet looked peaceful from up here, but Do-yun knew that peace might end today. His small crew of 200 people ran the most advanced defense station humanity had ever built, orbiting high above their home world. The station was new, only 6 months old. Most people on Earth did not even know it existed. The government kept it secret, along with all the experimental weapons and shields they had installed on it. Do-hyun often wondered if they would ever need to use any of it. Today, he got his answer. Lieutenant Commander Park Min-ji sat at her console, her fingers dancing over the controls. She was the best tactical officer Do-hyun had ever worked with, smart and quick to think. Her screens showed empty space around Earth, but that was about to change. "Captain," Min-ji said, her voice tight with worry. "I'm picking up something big on the long-range sensors, really big." Do-hyun pushed himself over to her station. In the low gravity of the station, everyone moved by floating and pushing off walls. He looked at her screen and felt his stomach drop. 50 massive shapes were moving toward Earth from the outer edge of the solar system. "How big?" Do-hyun asked. "Each one is about the size of a small city," Min-ji replied. "They're moving fast, and they're definitely not human ships." Chief Engineer Kim Jin-ho floated over from his station. He was a big man with strong hands, perfect for fixing the complicated machines that kept the station running. "Captain, those ships are using technology we've never seen before. The energy readings are off the charts." Communications Officer Choi Yoonji suddenly spoke up from her corner of the command center. "Captain, I'm getting a signal from the unknown ships. They're trying to talk to us." "Put it through," Do-hyun ordered. The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at something that was clearly not human. The alien had gray skin, 4 arms, and eyes that glowed with a cold blue light. It wore what looked like military uniforms covered in medals and symbols. "Primitive species of the third planet," the alien said in perfect English, though its voice sounded like metal scraping against stone. "I am Commander Kythos of the Velthari Empire. Your world now belongs to us. Surrender immediately and we will allow some of your people to live as slaves. Resist, and we will destroy every living thing on your planet." The transmission cut off, leaving the command center in shocked silence. Do-hyun looked around at his crew. These were good people. Scientists and engineers mostly, not soldiers. They had joined the space program to explore and learn, not to fight aliens. But here they were, the only thing standing between Earth and 50 massive warships. "Options?" Do-hyun asked. Min-ji checked her screens. "The alien ships will reach Earth in 6 hours. We could try to contact Earth and warn them, but there's no way to evacuate 7 billion people in 6 hours. Jin-ho spoke up. "Our weapons are experimental, Captain. We don't know if they'll work against alien technology, but we have to try something." Yoonji was already working at her console. "I'm sending a message to Earth now, telling them what's happening. Maybe they can prepare some kind of defense." Do-hyun made his decision. "We fight. Signal all crew to battle stations. Jin-ho, I want every weapon system online. Min-ji, start plotting attack patterns. Yoonji, keep trying to contact the aliens. Maybe we can buy some time." The next few hours passed quickly. The crew worked with calm efficiency, preparing their small station for a battle against impossible odds. They all knew they were probably going to die, but nobody complained. This was their job, protecting Earth. The alien fleet was beautiful in a terrible way. The ships looked like they were made of crystal and metal, glowing with soft lights. They moved through space like sharks swimming through dark water, deadly and graceful. "They're ignoring our communication attempts," Yoonji reported. "I don't think they want to talk anymore." "Weapons ready," Jin-ho announced. "All systems are green." "Tactical analysis complete," Min-ji said. "The alien ships have shields and armor that look very advanced. But I've found some weak points. If we hit them just right, we might be able to do some damage." The aliens came in slowly, probably expecting the humans to surrender at the last minute. Commander Kythos appeared on their screen again, his 4 arms spread wide. "Last chance, humans. Surrender now or face destruction." Do-hyun looked at his crew one more time. They were scared. He could see it in their eyes. But they were also determined. They were ready to fight for their home. Commander Kithos, Do-hyun, said calmly, "We have a message for you and your empire." "What message?" the alien asked. "Go to hell," Do-hyun replied, and cut the transmission. The battle began immediately. The alien ships opened fire with weapons that turned space bright with energy beams and explosions. Aegis Station's shields held, but Do-hyun could hear the power systems straining under the attack. "Return fire," he ordered. Their weapons were different from anything the aliens had seen before. Instead of energy beams, the humans used solid projectiles that moved incredibly fast. The aliens' shields, designed to stop energy weapons, were not ready for chunks of metal moving at nearly the speed of light. The first alien ship to die was a surprise to everyone, including the humans. Minji's perfectly aimed shot punched through its shields and tore the ship apart from the inside. The explosion lit up space like a small star. "It worked!" Jinho shouted. "The railguns work!" But there were still 49 alien ships left, and they were angry now. The aliens changed their tactics, spreading out and attacking from all sides. Aegis Station spun and twisted through space, its smaller size letting it dodge the massive alien ships. For 3 days, the battle continued. The humans used every trick they could think of. They hid behind Earth's moon and launched surprise attacks. They used the station's experimental stealth systems to disappear and reappear somewhere else. They even crashed a few damaged alien ships into each other by hacking their navigation systems. Minji proved to be a genius at finding weak spots in the alien ships. Every shot she aimed seemed to hit exactly where it would do the most damage. Jinho kept the weapons working even when half the station was on fire. Yoonji managed their communications and helped coordinate their attacks. By the end of the 3rd day, 12 alien ships were destroyed, and 8 more were badly damaged. But Aegis Station was dying. The shields were failing, the weapons were overheating, and fires burned throughout the station. "Captain," Jinho reported, his voice tired, "we've lost main power. We're running on emergency batteries, and they won't last much longer." Do-hyun looked around the command center. Half his crew was dead or wounded. The survivors were exhausted and hurt, but they were still fighting. They had done the impossible, proving that humans could fight back against the alien empire. "We're not done yet," Do-hyun said. He had one last plan, one final card to play. He ordered the surviving crew to the escape pods, but most of them refused to leave. They wanted to stay and fight to the end. Only about 50 people made it to the pods, before the aliens broke through their shields. Do-hyun sat alone in the command center as alien boarding troops cut through the station's hull. He had disabled the automatic controls and taken manual command of the station's engines. With careful adjustments to the thrusters, he aimed the dying station directly at the alien flagship. Commander Kithos appeared on his screen one last time. "Surrender now, human, and we will make your death quick." Do-hyun smiled. "I told you before. Go to hell." He pushed the engines to maximum power. Aegis Station, all 10,000 tons of metal and weapons, slammed into the alien flagship at tremendous speed. The explosion could be seen from Earth, a brief new star in the night sky. The surviving alien ships limped away from Earth, badly hurt and confused. They had come expecting an easy victory over primitive humans. Instead, they had lost a quarter of their fleet to a single small station. Commander Kithos, barely alive in an escape pod, sent a message back to the Velthari Empire. "Humans are dangerous, but manageable. Recommend full sector fleet for subjugation." The Empire received his message and began planning their next attack. They had no idea that what they had just fought was not humanity's military, but a small research station with experimental weapons. The real war was about to begin. 6 months had passed since the destruction of Aegis Station, and Earth was a different world. The news of the alien attack had spread quickly, despite government attempts to keep it secret. People were scared, but they were also angry. Humanity had been attacked in their own home, and they were not going to sit quietly and wait for it to happen again. Colonel Han Jisu stood in the command center of Asteroid Base 7, one of 20 hidden military installations scattered throughout the solar system. The base was built inside a large asteroid, invisible to most sensors and armed with weapons that would make the aliens think twice about attacking. Jisu was a small woman with sharp eyes and a mind that never stopped thinking about tactics and strategy. She had been a military planner before the aliens came, but now she was in charge of something much bigger. Her job was to make sure that when the aliens returned, humanity would be ready for them. "Status report," she said to her staff. "Major." General Nam Ji-wan floated over from the tactical display. He was a big man with gray hair and scars on his hands from years of military service. "All 20 asteroid bases are operational and fully armed. We have enough firepower hidden out here to stop a fleet 10 times the size of what attacked Aegis Station." Admiral Song Heron, who commanded the orbital defenses around Earth and Mars, appeared on the main screen. She was broadcasting from the new Luna Defense Platform, built on the far side of Earth's moon. "The planetary defense grid is ready, Colonel. We have 300 weapon platforms around Earth and another 100 around Mars. If the aliens want to attack our worlds, they'll have to go through us first." Captain Yoon Dong-hyuk, leader of the new fighter squadrons, gave his report next. "We have 500 fighter craft ready for combat, sir. They're fast, heavily armed, and designed to hit hard and disappear before the enemy can respond." Dr. Young Subin, the chief scientist of the defense project, was excited about her latest discoveries. "Colonel, we've learned so much from the wreckage of the alien ships we destroyed. Their technology is advanced, but it's also predictable. They've been using the same basic designs for thousands of years. We've taken their best ideas and made them better." Engineer Commander Ryu Seung-min had been working day and night to build new ships for humanity's defense. "Our new destroyers are half the size of the alien ships, but they pack twice the firepower. We've also developed new armor that can absorb energy weapons and turn that energy into power for our own systems." Jisoo nodded, pleased with the reports. Humanity had used the 6 months well. They had built defenses, developed new weapons, and trained thousands of people for space combat. But she knew the aliens would be back soon, and they would be ready for a fight this time. The aliens did return, just as Jisoo had predicted. Sector Admiral Zerion arrived with 500 ships and 2 million soldiers, confident that this massive force would be more than enough to crush any human resistance. The aliens had learned from their first defeat and brought overwhelming numbers to make sure they would win, but the aliens had made a mistake. They expected to fight the same kind of battle they had fought against Aegis Station, a direct attack on human positions. Instead, they found that the humans had prepared something completely different. The alien fleet entered the solar system and immediately came under attack from hidden bases in the asteroid belt. Jisoo's carefully placed weapons platforms opened fire from every direction, turning the orderly alien formation into chaos. The aliens had never fought against enemies who used the entire solar system as a battlefield. Captain Yoon Dong-hyuk led his fighter squadrons in hit-and-run attacks that drove the alien commanders crazy. His small, fast ships would appear out of nowhere, destroy an alien vessel, and then disappear into the gas clouds around Jupiter or hide in the rings of Saturn. The aliens would send their own fighters to chase them, but the human pilots knew the solar system better than anyone. Admiral Song Heron's defense platforms around Earth and Mars proved to be much stronger than the aliens expected. When Zerion tried to attack Earth directly, his ships ran into a wall of defensive fire that stopped them cold. The platforms were connected by a network that let them work together like one giant weapon, focusing all their power on single targets. Dr. Young Subin's new technologies gave the humans advantages the aliens had never seen before. Human weapons could punch through alien shields like they were paper. Human ships could absorb alien energy blasts and use that power to make their own weapons stronger. Human armor was lighter but tougher than anything the aliens had. The war lasted 2 years, and it was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The humans fought in ways that made no sense to the aliens, who were used to enemies that followed predictable rules of warfare. Human tactics changed constantly, adapting to new situations faster than the aliens could respond. Major General Nam Ji-wan led ground forces that could fight in the vacuum of space or on asteroid surfaces. His soldiers wore powered armor that made them as strong as alien warriors twice their size. When the aliens tried to capture human bases, they found that humans fought for every meter of ground, using weapons and tactics that seemed to come from nowhere. Engineer Commander Ryu Seung-min kept building new ships throughout the war, each design better than the last. He developed vessels that could change their shape during battle, growing armor where they needed it and shedding weight when they needed speed. His shipyards, hidden throughout the solar system, produced vessels faster than the aliens could destroy them. The aliens tried everything they could think of to win the war. They brought in elite troops from across their empire. They used weapons designed to crack planets. They even tried to destroy the sun itself, thinking that would end human resistance forever. But every alien strategy failed. The humans seemed to anticipate their moves and have counterplans ready. When the aliens brought elite troops, the humans used tactics those troops had never encountered. When the aliens used planet-cracking weapons, the humans had already moved their important facilities to places the aliens couldn't find. Captain Yoon Dong-hyuk's fighter pilots became legends during the war. They developed new ways of fighting that used gravity as a weapon, slingshotting around planets to build up incredible speed, and then ramming alien ships. They learned to hide in asteroid fields and launch surprise attacks from distances so close that alien defensive systems couldn't respond in time. Dr. Young Subin made breakthrough after breakthrough in technology. She learned to reverse engineer alien equipment and improve it within weeks. Her laboratories, scattered across dozens of hidden bases, worked around the clock to develop new weapons and defenses. By the end of the war, human technology was clearly superior to anything the aliens had. The turning point came when Admiral Song Heron led a massive counterattack against the alien command ship. Using new cloaking technology developed by Dr. Young Subin, a human strike force managed to get close, enough to board the massive vessel. The fighting inside the ship was brutal, but the humans had trained for exactly this kind of close-quarters combat. Sector Admiral Zarion was captured alive during the battle for his command ship. The alien commander who had started the war, confident in his victory, was now broken and desperate. He could not understand how his massive, experienced fleet had been defeated by what he thought were primitive humans. As his ship burned around him and his fleet retreated in disorder, Zarion sent his final message to the Velthari Empire. His voice was filled with fear and confusion as he described what he had experienced. "Send everything," he transmitted. "Send the entire Navy. These humans, they fight like demons. They turn our own weapons against us. They never surrender. Every time we think we understand them, they do something new. They use their entire star system as a weapon. They fight with a fury I have never seen." The message reached the Emperor of the Velthari Empire, who read it with growing concern. Zarion had been one of his best commanders, leading a force that should have been able to conquer 100 worlds. If the humans had defeated him so completely, then they were clearly more dangerous than anyone had realized. But the Emperor was not panicked. The Velthari Empire had existed for 10,000 years and had conquered thousands of worlds. They had faced dangerous enemies before and always won in the end. If the humans wanted a real war, then the Empire would give them one. The Emperor began to plan the largest military operation in Imperial history. He would gather fleets from across the galaxy and throw them at the human solar system until nothing was left. The humans had proven they were dangerous, but they were still just one small species on one small world. How could they possibly stand against the might of an entire galactic empire? As the surviving alien ships limped away from the solar system, the humans began to prepare for what they knew would be the real war. They had defeated the aliens' scouting force and their first invasion fleet, but they understood that the Empire had barely begun to fight. The next attack would be bigger, stronger, and more determined than anything they had faced so far. But humanity was no longer the same species that had been surprised by the first alien attack. They had learned to fight on a galactic scale, developed technologies that surpassed their enemies, and proven that they could win against impossible. The Velthari Empire had never faced a defeat like this in their 10,000 years of existence. Emperor Maltheus sat on his crystal throne in the Imperial Palace, reading reports that filled him with both anger and disbelief. A single star system had destroyed 2 of his fleets and made the entire galaxy question the Empire's power. Supreme Admiral Vorthak stood before the Emperor, his 4 arms held respectfully at his sides. He was the Empire's greatest military commander, a being who had conquered more worlds than any other in Imperial history. The Emperor had called him back from the frontier wars to deal with the human problem once and for all. "Your Majesty," Vorthak said in his deep, rumbling voice, "I have assembled the largest invasion force in our history. 50,000 ships, 500 million troops, and our most elite commanders. The humans will not survive this attack. The Emperor leaned forward on his throne. "Are you certain, Admiral? We thought the same thing about our previous fleets." "The humans caught us by surprise with their strange tactics," Vorthak replied. "But we have studied their methods now. We know how they fight. This time, we will be ready for them." Meanwhile, in the Sol system, humanity was preparing for the storm they knew was coming. President Kim Min-seo stood before the United Earth Council, addressing representatives from every nation on the planet. The time for secrets was over. Everyone needed to know what was happening and what they had to do to survive. "Citizens of Earth," President Kim began, "we face the greatest threat in human history. The Velthari Empire is sending their entire military to destroy us. But we will not go quietly into the night. For the past 3 years, we have been preparing for this moment." General Lee Hyunwoo activated a holographic display that showed the entire solar system. What the representatives saw amazed them. The space around Earth was filled with thousands of defense platforms, weapon stations, and hidden bases. The asteroid belt had been turned into a massive fortress. Even the moons of the outer planets bristled with defensive systems. "We call it the Solar Defense Grid," General Lee explained. "Every asteroid, every moon, every piece of space debris has been turned into part of our defensive network. If the aliens want to reach Earth, they will have to fight for every meter of space. But humanity had not been content to simply build defenses." Ambassador John So-young had been traveling secretly throughout the galaxy for 2 years, making contact with species that were tired of imperial rule. Many alien civilizations had been conquered by the Velthari centuries ago and forced to serve the Empire against their will. "We are not alone in this fight," Ambassador John reported to the Council. "Dozens of species have agreed to join us. The Kethtar, the Ilani, and the Mordan have all sent fleets to help defend Earth. They see this as their chance to be free from imperial rule." Fleet Admiral Oh Tae-hyun commanded humanity's new space navy from his flagship, the UES Liberation. The ship was a marvel of human engineering, built with technology that combined the best human innovations with alien designs captured from previous battles. It was fast, heavily armed, and tough enough to fight ships 3 times its size. "Our fleet is ready," Admiral O reported. "We have 2,000 ships of the line, each one more advanced than anything the Empire has seen before. Our crews have trained in combat for 3 years. They know what they're fighting for." Colonel Park Sun-woo led the Orbital Marine Corps, soldiers equipped with powered armor that made them deadly in space combat. His Marines had trained to fight in zero gravity, on asteroid surfaces, and inside enemy ships. They were ready for any kind of battle the aliens might bring. "My Marines can fight anywhere," Colonel Park said confidently. "On ships, on stations, on planets, or in open space. We've learned from every battle, and we're not the same humans the aliens first encountered." The real innovation came from Chief Scientist Dr. Baek Ji-yeon and her research teams. Working in laboratories hidden throughout the solar system, they had developed technologies that seemed almost magical. Their greatest achievement was a new type of shield that could protect entire planets from alien superweapons. "We call them planetary shields," Dr. Baek explained to the Council. "They create a barrier around a world that can absorb incredible amounts of energy. Even if the aliens try to crack our planets, we can protect them." When the Imperial fleet finally arrived, it was a sight that would have terrified any other species. 50,000 ships filled the space at the edge of the solar system, their hulls gleaming in the light of the distant sun. Each ship was a masterpiece of alien engineering, designed for conquest and destruction. Supreme Admiral Vorthak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Imperial Glory, and looked at the human star system through his viewing screens. He expected to see a small, primitive civilization trying desperately to defend itself. Instead, he saw something that shocked him to his core. The entire solar system had been turned into a fortress. Weapon platforms floated in formations that stretched for millions of kilometers. Asteroid bases bristled with guns that tracked his ships as they moved. The space around Earth itself glowed with the energy shields of thousands of defensive stations. "This is impossible," one of his officers whispered. "How could primitives build something like this in just 3 years?" But Vorthak was a veteran commander. He had seen many impossible things in his long career. "It doesn't matter how they built it," he said firmly. "We will tear it all down. Begin the attack." The Battle of Sol began with the largest space engagement in galactic history. 50,000 Imperial ships moved into the solar system like A great wave of destruction, their weapons lighting up space with energy beams and missile explosions. The humans and their allies met them with everything they had. Fleet Admiral Oh Tae-hyun led the human fleet in a fighting retreat that drew the Imperial ships deeper into the solar system. His vessels used hit-and-run tactics, striking hard and then disappearing behind asteroids or into the rings of the gas giants. The Imperial ships, used to enemies that fought in orderly formations, struggled to deal with the chaos of human warfare. The Kethtar brought their warrior traditions to the battle, flying ships that looked like great metal dragons. Their vessels were built for close combat, ramming Imperial ships and then boarding them to fight hand-to-hand. The Yailani, beings of pure energy, could survive in space without ships and attack the Imperial fleet like living lightning bolts. Dr. Beck. Ji-yeon's planetary shields proved their worth when the Imperial fleet tried to use planet-cracking weapons on Earth. The massive energy beams that should have destroyed the world instead splashed harmlessly against the protective barriers, their power absorbed and redirected back at the attacking ships. The war lasted 5 years and became known as the War of Solar Defiance. The Imperial fleet threw everything they had at humanity and their allies. They brought in elite troops that had conquered hundreds of worlds. They used weapons that could destroy stars. They even tried to crash moons into Earth to break through the planetary shields. But humanity and their allies adapted to every Imperial strategy. When the Empire brought elite troops, Colonel Park Sun-woo's Marines proved that human soldiers could fight just as well as any alien warrior. When the Empire used superweapons, Dr. Baek Ji-yeon found ways to turn those weapons against their creators. The turning point came during the Battle of Jupiter. Captain Lim Ji-hoon commanded a prototype stealth destroyer that could become invisible to Imperial sensors. His mission was desperate and dangerous: penetrate the Imperial fleet and capture Supreme Admiral Vorthak alive. Captain Lim and his crew of 50 volunteers flew their ship into the heart of the Imperial formation. Using new cloaking technology, they slipped past thousands of enemy vessels and docked with the Imperial glory. The fighting inside the massive command ship was brutal, but the humans had trained for exactly this kind of operation. When Supreme Admiral Vorthak was finally captured, he was more confused than angry. The great Imperial commander could not understand how his massive fleet had been held off by what he still thought of as primitives. As human Marines dragged him away, he kept asking the same question over and over. How? How did you do this? The interrogation of Vorthak revealed information that shocked the human leadership. Intelligence Director Shin Ye-jin led the questioning, using techniques that were firm but fair. What Vorthak told them changed everything they thought they knew about their situation. The Velthari Empire was vast beyond imagination, spanning 3,000 star systems with trillions of citizens. But the forces that had attacked humanity were just a tiny fraction of the Empire's total military power. Most of the Imperial Navy was fighting ancient enemies on the far side of the galaxy, creatures so dangerous that they required constant attention. "You have been fighting less than 1% of our true strength," Vorthak said during his interrogation. "The forces sent against you were meant for police actions, not real wars. If the Emperor recalls our main fleets from the border conflicts, your species will be erased from existence." Strategic analyst Won Kyung-ho processed this information and realized the terrifying implications. If humanity could barely defeat what amounted to a local security force, what would happen when the Empire's real military arrived? The humans had won every battle so far, but they were still just... Intelligence Director Shin Ye-jin sat across from Supreme Admiral Vorthak in the secure interrogation room deep inside Luna Base. The captured alien commander looked tired and defeated, his 4 arms hanging limply at his sides. For 3 months, Ye-jin had been carefully questioning him, learning about the true scope of the galaxy and the enemies humanity faced. "Tell me about the Nethys Collective," Ye-jin said, her voice calm and professional. She had learned that Vorthak responded better to respectful treatment than to threats or intimidation. Vorthak's glowing blue eyes dimmed with what looked like fear. "The Nethys are machines, but not like any machines your species has built. They are ancient artificial intelligences from the galactic core, beings that have been alive for millions of years. They consume entire star systems to build more of themselves." "And the Zephyr Nomads?" Ye-jin continued. "Creatures of pure energy," Vorthak replied. They travel between galaxies, feeding on the life force of entire worlds. When they arrive in a system, every living thing dies within days. We have been fighting them for 3,000 years. Strategic analyst Won Kyung-ho was listening to the interrogation from the observation room, taking careful notes. The more he learned about the galaxy, the more he understood humanity's true situation. The Velthari Empire was not just fighting humans. They were locked in constant warfare with enemies that made humanity look weak by comparison. "So the forces you sent against us?" Yejin prompted. "Were garrison troops and colonial security forces," Vorthak admitted. "Local commanders, dealing with what they thought was a minor rebellion. The Empire's real military, our battle fleets and elite units, are all fighting on the frontier against the Nethys and the Zephyr." Won Kyung-ho felt his stomach drop as he realized the implications. If humanity could barely defeat the Empires, local security forces, what would happen when their real military arrived? But then he thought about something else Vorthak had said, and a different picture began to form in his mind. Admiral Kang Soo-jin joined the analysis team that evening, along with several other senior commanders. They gathered in a secure conference room to discuss what they had learned from the interrogation. "The Empire is fighting a war on multiple fronts," Admiral Kang observed. "They've been using the same tactics and strategies for thousands of years because they've been fighting the same enemies for thousands of years. That makes them predictable." Dr. Yu Jae-hyuk, the xenobiology expert, had been studying captured imperial technology and alien psychology. "Humans adapt faster than any species in this galaxy," he reported. "Most alien civilizations change very slowly, taking centuries to develop new ideas. We've been innovating constantly, doing in years what other species do in centuries. The Empire's greatest strength is also their greatest weakness," Won Kyung-ho added. "They're so large and spread out that they can't focus their full power on any single threat. They're like a giant trying to fight a dozen smaller enemies at once." The discussion was interrupted by an urgent communication from Captain Na Jihye, who was leading humanity's first expeditionary fleet in Imperial space. Her mission to liberate 3 nearby star systems had been more successful than anyone dared hope. "Command, this is Captain Na." Her voice crackled through the long-range communicator. "Operation Wildfire is exceeding all expectations. We've liberated the Kepler, Ross, and Wolf systems with minimal casualties. The Imperial garrison forces were completely unprepared for our tactics." Fleet Admiral Oh Tae-hyun leaned forward with interest. "What about alien civilians? Are they supporting the liberation?" "More than supporting it, Admiral," Captain Na replied. "They're joining it. The Kethtar and the Kepler system have provided us with 300 ships and 50,000 volunteer warriors. The Ilani are sharing their energy manipulation technology. Even species we've never heard of are asking to join our alliance." Diplomat An Mir-young had been working secretly with resistance groups throughout Imperial space. Her reports painted a picture of an empire that was far less stable than it appeared from the outside. "The galaxy is tired of Imperial rule," she reported to the Leadership Council. "Most of the species in the Empire were conquered centuries ago and forced to serve as soldiers and workers. They see humanity as their chance for freedom." "How many potential allies are we talking about?" President Kim Min-seo asked. "Hundreds of species across thousands of worlds," An replied. "The Empire rules through fear and superior technology, but if we can prove that they can be beaten, entire sectors might rebel at once." The humans decided to accelerate their expansion beyond Imperial space. General Hwang Seung-jin developed new plans for Operation Wildfire, sending human fleets to dozens of star systems simultaneously. Each fleet was small but highly advanced, carrying new technologies that could liberate entire worlds with minimal fighting. Captain Ko Youngren led the liberation of the Kethtar homeworld, a planet that had been under Imperial rule for 800 years. The Kethtar were a warrior species, naturally aggressive and skilled in combat, but they had been forced to fight for the Empire against their will. The battle for Kethtar Prime was short but intense, the Imperial garrison, expecting to deal with a minor uprising, found themselves facing human ships using tactics they had never seen before. Captain Ko's fleet used the planet's own gravity to accelerate their attacks, slingshotting around Kethtar Prime to build up incredible speed before striking. This is Captain Ko to all Imperial forces, she broadcast on all frequencies. You have 10 minutes to surrender and leave this system. After that, we will destroy every Imperial ship that remains. The Imperial commander, a arrogant Velthari, noble named Commander Zeloth, laughed at the human ultimatum. You are outnumbered 5-1, primitive. We will crush you and then burn your homeworld as an example to other rebels. 9 minutes later, Commander Zeloth was dead, and his fleet was destroyed. The humans had used new weapons that turned the Imperial ship's own energy against them, causing massive explosions that lit up the space around Kethtar Prime like a fireworks display. The liberation of Kethtar Prime brought an entire warrior species into the human alliance. The Kethtar Grand Marshal, a massive reptilian being named Cormath, pledged his people's full support to the human cause. For 800 years, we have fought for masters who despise us, Cormath declared. Now we fight for allies who treat us as equals. The Empire will learn to fear the claws of Kethtar. Engineer Prime Chai Dongjun was overseeing the construction of massive shipyards in the liberated systems. Humanity was no longer just fighting with Earth's resources. They were building a galactic industrial base that could produce ships and weapons on a scale to match the Empire. We're not just liberating worlds, he reported to Earth. We're building an entirely new civilization. Human technology combined with alien manufacturing capabilities is producing results beyond our wildest dreams. The Empire tried desperately to stop the human advance. They sent elite guard units, deployed superweapons, and even attempted to destroy Earth with long-range planet crackers. But Defense Coordinator Hong Se-hyun and the Solar Defense Grid held firm against every attack. Strike. Admiral Jang Yuna led retaliatory raids that left Imperial core worlds burning. Her fleets would appear out of hyperspace, destroy key Imperial installations, and disappear before reinforcements could arrive. The Empire's invincible image was crumbling as more and more worlds fell to human liberation forces. The Empire's greatest shock came when Commodore Bay Minky successfully captured Veldara, a fortress world that had never fallen in 5,000 years of Imperial history. The world was defended by the Empire's most elite troops and surrounded by space stations that could destroy entire fleets. But Commodore Bay used a strategy that the Imperial defenders had never imagined. Instead of attacking the fortresses directly, his forces landed on the planet's surface and began liberating the civilian population. The alien workers and slaves, inspired by human promises of freedom, rose up in massive rebellions that paralyzed the planet's defenses. Colonel Im Chae-young led the human marines who captured the main fortress. Her troops used tactics that made no sense to the alien defenders, advancing through areas that should have been impossible to cross and attacking from directions that should have been impossible to reach. How do they do it? The fortress commander asked as human marines overran his final stronghold. How do they move through solid rock? How do they appear behind our strongest defenses? The answer was human adaptability and innovation. Colonel Im's Marines used new technologies developed specifically for each battle, equipment that could drill through solid stone or become invisible to alien sensors. They fought with a creativity and flexibility that the rigid Imperial military could not match. Reports flooded back to the Imperial capital, each one more alarming than the last. Human forces were spreading across the galaxy like wildfire, liberating world after world and gaining new allies with every victory. Entire sectors were declaring independence from Imperial rule and joining the human alliance. They fight in ways that make no sense, one Imperial commander reported. They sacrifice expensive equipment to save individual soldiers. They treat conquered populations with respect instead of fear. They share their technology freely instead of hoarding it for. The Emperor Maltheus stood in the Imperial War Room, surrounded by holographic displays showing the collapse of his empire. Red markers indicated rebellious worlds, orange showed systems under attack, and blue marked the advancing human alliance. There was far too much red and orange, and the blue was spreading faster than his military could respond. How many systems have we lost this week? The Emperor asked his chief military advisor. General Corthane, a veteran commander with scars from a dozen wars, checked his reports with trembling hands. 47 systems have declared independence, Your Majesty. 12 more are under direct attack by human forces. We estimate that 30% of the Empire is now in open rebellion. The Emperor's crystal throne began to glow with angry energy. 30%? How is this possible? We are fighting primitives who discovered space travel only a few centuries ago. But even as he spoke, the Emperor knew the answer. The humans had done something no other species had managed in 10,000 years of imperial rule. They had given hope to the conquered peoples of the galaxy, shown them that the Empire could be defeated. On the frontier worlds, the situation was becoming desperate. Fleet Admiral Zethros commanded the 7th Battle Fleet, one of the Empire's most powerful military formations. For 3,000 years, his ships had held the line against the Nethys Collective, the machine intelligences that sought to consume all organic life. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving urgent orders from the capital. The Emperor is recalling the 7th Fleet to deal with the human rebellion." Zethros felt his blood turn cold. Recall the entire fleet? What about the Nethys? Who will hold the line against the machines? "The orders are clear, sir. We are to abandon our positions and return to Imperial space immediately." Similar orders were being sent to battle fleets across the galaxy. The massive formations that had fought the Empire's ancient enemies for millennia were being pulled back to deal with the human threat. It was a decision born of desperation, and it would have consequences the Emperor could not foresee. Admiral Seo Jung-ho led humanity's expanding fleet as they liberated system after system. His forces had grown from a few dozen ships to thousands as liberated worlds contributed their own vessels and crews to the human alliance. Every victory brought new allies and new technology. "Admiral," Captain Ko Youngren reported from the bridge of her cruiser, "we've successfully liberated the Altair system. The Velthari garrison surrendered after our first attack. The local population is celebrating in the streets." "Any word from the other liberation fleets?" Admiral Seo asked. "All successful, sir. Captain Min Seok-jin has taken the Vega system. Commander Lim Soyan has liberated Procyon, and Major Park Ji-hoon's Marines have secured the orbital stations around Sirius. We now control over 200 star systems." The speed of human expansion was staggering. Each liberated world became a base for further operations, and the alien populations provided knowledge of imperial weaknesses and hidden military installations. The humans were not just conquering territory, they were building a new civilization based on cooperation and mutual respect. Engineer Prime Che Dongjun was overseeing the construction of the largest shipyard in galactic history. Located in the liberated Kepler system, the facility could build 100 ships simultaneously using a combination of human innovation and alien manufacturing techniques. "The production numbers are incredible," he reported to Fleet Command. "We're building ships faster than the Empire can destroy them. Every design incorporates lessons learned from previous battles, making each new vessel more effective than the last." But the humans soon discovered that their success was creating an even bigger problem. As the Empire recalled its frontier fleets to fight the rebellion, the ancient enemies that had been held in check for millennia began to advance into Imperial space. The Nethys Collective, freed from the pressure of Imperial battle fleets, began a massive expansion toward the galactic core. Their machine ships, each one the size of a moon, consumed entire star systems to build more of themselves. Worlds that had been safe for thousands of years suddenly faced extinction. Dr. Won Kyung-ho was analyzing intelligence reports when he noticed the pattern. "The Empire is pulling back their best fleets to fight us," he told the Leadership Council, "but that's leaving their borders undefended against enemies far worse than we are." President Kim Min-seo studied the galactic map with growing concern. "What are we talking about here? How dangerous are these other enemies?" "The Nethys Collective has consumed over 1,000 star systems in the past 6 months," Dr. Won replied. "The Zephyr nomads have sterilized entire sectors. These are not enemies that can be negotiated with or reasoned with. They exist only to destroy." The situation became even more complicated when Captain Na Jihe's expeditionary fleet encountered Nethys forces near the liberated Ross system. The machine intelligences attacked without warning, their massive ships attempting to consume everything in the system. "This is Captain Na to all human forces," she broadcast on emergency frequencies. "We are under attack by unknown hostiles. These are not Imperial ships. They appear to be machines, and they're trying to dismantle our space stations for raw materials." The battle with the Nethys was unlike anything humans had experienced. The machine ships could repair themselves during combat, rebuilding damaged sections from the wreckage of destroyed vessels. Their weapons were designed to disintegrate matter at the molecular level, turning solid objects into basic materials for construction. But humanity's greatest strength once again proved to be adaptability. Captain Na's fleet quickly developed new tactics, using the machine's own programming against them. By broadcasting false signals, the humans could confuse Nethys targeting systems and trick them into attacking each other. They're pure logic with no creativity, Captain Na reported after successfully driving off the Nethys attack. They follow predictable patterns and can't adapt when we do something unexpected. But they're incredibly dangerous if they're allowed to operate unopposed. Defense Coordinator Hong Se-hyun realized that humanity now faced a three-way conflict. They were fighting the Velthari Empire for freedom, but they also had to protect liberated worlds from the Nethys Collective and other ancient threats. We can't just focus on the Empire anymore, he told the military leadership. If we don't help defend against these other enemies, our liberated worlds will be consumed by machines or sterilized by energy beings. Strike Admiral Jang Yuna was already adapting human forces to deal with multiple threats. Her fleets had been reorganized into rapid response forces that could fight Imperial troops one day and machine intelligences the next. The key is flexibility, she explained to her commanders. We have to be ready to change our tactics completely depending on what we're fighting. The Empire responds to military pressure, the Nethys respond to logical puzzles, and the Zephyr respond to, well, we're still figuring that out. The complexity of the galactic situation was driven home when Commodore Bay Minky led a rescue mission to an Imperial world that was under attack by Zephyr nomads. The energy beings had begun draining the life force from the planet, turning its surface into a lifeless wasteland. This is wrong, Colonel Im Chae-young said, as her Marines watched Imperial civilians fleeing the dying world. These people were our enemies yesterday, but we can't just leave them to die. The rescue operation was incredibly dangerous. Zephyr nomads existed as pure energy and could only be fought with specially designed weapons that disrupted their electromagnetic fields. But humanity's scientists had been studying captured Imperial technology and had developed counters to most known threats. The battle to save the Imperial world became a turning point in the galactic conflict. Human ships, fighting alongside desperate Imperial defenders, managed to drive off the Zephyr attack and evacuate millions of alien civilians to safety. Emperor Maltheus received reports of the rescue with confusion and growing fear. The humans saved our people? Why would they do that? They should have let the Zephyr destroy our world and weakened our position. General Corthane was equally puzzled. Perhaps it was a strategic decision, Your Majesty. They may have wanted to prevent the Zephyr from gaining strength by consuming our world. But the Emperor was beginning to understand that humans thought differently than any species he had encountered. They fought for principles that had nothing to do with strategic advantage or military necessity. They saved lives because they believed it was the right thing to do, even when those lives belonged to their enemies. Reports continued to flood into the Imperial capital, each one more confusing than the last. Human forces were fighting to protect Imperial worlds from ancient threats. They were sharing their technology with former enemies who helped in the defense against machine intelligences. They were even treating captured Imperial soldiers with respect and releasing them after battles. They don't act like conquerors, one Imperial commander reported after being freed by human forces. They act like liberators. They're trying to save the galaxy, not just defeat us. The realization hit Emperor Maltheus like a physical blow. The humans were not trying to replace the Velthari Empire with their own version of galactic domination. They were trying to create something completely new, a galaxy boo. The Battle of Velthar Prime began at dawn on a day that would change galactic history forever. Grand Admiral Lee Soo-young stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching as humanity's largest fleet prepared to assault the capital world of the Velthari Empire. Around her, thousands of ships from dozens of liberated species waited for the signal to attack. "All fleets report ready, Admiral," her tactical officer announced. "The Liberation Alliance is in position." Admiral Lee nodded, but she felt no joy at this moment. The past months had shown her that the galaxy was more complicated than anyone had imagined. The Empire was evil, but it was also the only thing standing between civilized worlds and ancient terrors that wanted to consume everything. The massive defense grid around Velthar Prime was the most heavily fortified position in the galaxy. Thousands of weapon platforms surrounded the planet, each one capable of destroying entire fleets. Ancient Imperial war machines, some older than human civilization, powered up their weapons as the human alliance approached. Incoming transmission. From the Imperial Palace, the communications officer reported. It's Emperor Malthius himself. The main screen flickered, and suddenly Admiral Lee was looking at the ruler of the galaxy's greatest empire. Emperor Malthius appeared older than she had expected, his features worn down by the weight of ruling trillions of subjects across thousands of worlds. Admiral Lee, the Emperor said, his voice filled with arrogance despite his desperate situation. You have come far for a primitive species, but this is where your rebellion ends. I have recalled my greatest fleets from the frontier wars. You face the true might of the Velthari Empire. Admiral Lee listened patiently as the Emperor boasted about his military power. Around Velthar Prime, massive Imperial battle fleets moved into position. These were not the garrison forces humanity had been fighting, but the elite units that had held the Empire's borders for thousands of years. Every ship you see represents 1,000 years of Imperial engineering, Emperor, Malthius continued. Every crew has been trained in warfare since childhood. You may have defeated our colonial forces, but you have never faced our real military. When the Emperor finished his speech, Admiral Lee smiled calmly. It was time to deliver the revelation that would shatter the Empire's understanding of what they had been fighting. Your Majesty, Admiral Lee said quietly, I think there's been a misunderstanding. What you've been fighting for the past decade, that wasn't humanity's military. Those were our explorers, scientists, and colonists defending themselves. The Emperor's expression changed from arrogance to confusion. What do you mean? Every ship you've faced, every soldier you've fought, Admiral Lee continued. They were civilians with improvised weapons and jury-rigged defenses. Captain Lee Do-hyun at Aegis Station was a research scientist. Colonel Han Jisu commanded asteroid mining bases that we turned into military stations. Fleet Admiral Oh Tai-hyun was exploring new star systems when you attacked. The silence on the Imperial Channel was deafening as the Emperor processed this information. Our actual military, Admiral Lee said, has been watching from Earth, waiting to see if we'd need them. As if summoned by her words, space around Velthar Prime suddenly filled with new contacts. Massive fleets emerged from hyperspace, their ships larger and more advanced than anything seen in the previous battles. These vessels were built for war, not exploration, designed by humans who had spent years studying every aspect of galactic combat. Captain Moon Jinwoo commanded Earth's home fleet from his flagship, the UES Retribution. His ships were marvels of human engineering, incorporating technologies that made their earlier innovations look primitive. Each vessel was armed with weapons that could crack planets and protected by shields that could absorb the energy of entire stars. General Yang Himi led the Terran Defense Corps, soldiers who had trained for war since the first alien attack. Her troops wore powered armor that made them immune to most known weapons and gave them strength to match any alien warrior. They had studied every battle report, learned from every mistake, and prepared for this moment. Admiral Park Woo-jin oversaw the Solar Military Command from his massive command ship, the UES Vengeance. His vessel was larger than most Imperial space stations and carried enough firepower to destroy entire fleets. Around him, the real human navy spread out in formations that demonstrated tactical thinking beyond anything the Empire had encountered. This is impossible, Emperor Malthius whispered as he watched the human military deploy around his capital world. If your civilians could do this to us, what could your real army have done? Commander No Sung-soo led the Terran Expeditionary Force as they began their assault on the Imperial defenses. The ancient weapon platforms that had protected Velthar Prime for millennia were swept away like leaves in a hurricane. Human warships moved through space with deadly precision, their weapons turning Imperial strongholds into cosmic dust. Marshal Ku Minjung commanded orbital platforms that had been hidden in the outer system, weapons designed specifically to crack fortress worlds. When she gave the order to fire, beams of pure energy lanced out across space, punching through Imperial shields like they were made of paper. The battle became a rout within hours. the Empire's greatest defenses, weapons that had never failed, in 10,000 years of warfare, were systematically destroyed by human forces that seemed to anticipate every Imperial move. The ancient war machines that the Emperor had activated were countered by human technologies that turned their own power against them. But the most shocking moment came when the Imperial fleet attempted to surrender. Admiral Lee's response was not what anyone expected. "Emperor Maltheus," she said, her voice broadcast across all frequencies, "we accept your surrender, but we have terms that might surprise you." The peace conference took place on neutral ground, a space station that had been hastily constructed between the two fleets. Emperor Maltheus arrived expecting to negotiate the terms of his empire's destruction. Instead, he found himself facing proposals that challenged everything he thought he knew about conquest and power. "We don't want to rule the galaxy," Admiral Lee explained to the assembled Imperial leadership. "We want to free it. The Velthari Empire can survive, but as equals in a galactic community, not as overlords ruling through fear." President Kim. Min Seo, attending the conference via hologram from Earth, outlined humanity's vision for the future. "We've seen what happens when one species tries to dominate all others. It creates endless wars, rebellions, and suffering. We propose something different, a confederation where each species governs itself while working together against common threats." The Emperor was confused by these terms. "You have defeated us completely. Why would you offer such generous conditions? Why not simply replace our empire with your own?" Dr. Yu Jaehyuk, who had studied alien psychology for years, answered the question. "Because humans learned something during our short history that your empire never did. Cooperation is stronger than domination. Allies fight harder than slaves. Innovation comes from freedom, not fear." The revelation that followed changed everything the Empire thought they knew about their enemies. Ambassador John Soyoung presented evidence that humans had been in contact with the Empire's ancient enemies, not to ally with them, but to understand them better. "The Nethys Collective and the Zephyr Nomads don't have to be eternal enemies," she explained. "The machines want resources to build more of themselves. The energy beings need sustenance to survive. These needs can be met without destroying entire civilizations." The peace negotiations revealed the true scope of human planning. While the Empire had been focused on military conquest, humanity had been developing diplomatic solutions to conflicts that had raged for millennia. Captain Moon Jinwoo had been in secret communication with Nethys leaders, artificial intelligences, that were far more reasonable than Imperial propaganda suggested. The machines were willing to discuss alternative sources of raw materials if they could be assured of their continued existence. General Yang Hyemi had led expeditions to contact the Zephyr Nomads, discovering that the energy beings were not malicious destroyers, but refugees from a dying galaxy. They consumed life force because it was the only energy source they could process, but human scientists had developed alternatives. The final shock came when Emperor Maltheus asked the question that had been haunting him throughout the negotiations. "If your civilians could defeat our armies, if your real military could destroy our greatest defenses so easily, what would have happened if we had forced you to use your full power from the beginning?" Admiral Lee smiled grimly. "Your Majesty, I really hope we never have to find out." She activated a holographic display that showed the true scope of human military preparation. Hidden throughout the solar system were weapons that could destroy entire star systems. Earth's moon had been hollowed out and turned into a massive fortress. The asteroid belt contained manufacturing facilities that could build 1,000,000 ships within months. "We prepared for the possibility that we might have to fight the entire galaxy," Admiral Lee explained. "Every human world, every space station, every asteroid base was designed to be part of one enormous war machine. We hoped we would never need to activate it fully." The Emperor stared at the display in growing horror.